I'm realizing how quickly the year is going when we have these lunch with friends coming around so quickly. And it is a special one today, not only because it was April's birthday yesterday and she gets to celebrate with all of us
It's
today
my 12 months. Yeah.
on this conversation. But thanks everybody for joining along with this, the Connection Table Lunch with Friends for this month. April, welcome. Thank you for being part of this conversation today.
Super exciting. Hi, everybody.
You you were actually one of the very first people who was part of some of these conversations as Joe and I were trying to build out what the connection table might look like, what our offering could be, what industry groups were doing and how they were investing in leadership and what that might look like. So it's really great to now have you as part of this conversation. But really what these Lunch with Friends are about, as I said before we hit record, is to meet some amazing people that we have in our networks, to grow our networks and really ensure that across Australia we are building really useful and important connections. And so, it is really great to have you here. Some of you will know I've known April for many a year. I was actually at boarding school with her husband many years ago. So we hail back to our early Toowoomba days and we'll speak no more about that. Um, but April, I really want you to start. I want to throw to you to introduce yourself. We're going to delve
Oh,
down into how you've ended up in some of your leadership roles, how
yes.
the niece of the Brewarrina Roo Works business has ended up in the
Extraordinary.
international roles that she's ended up in. But if I threw to you and said to introduce yourself and give us a bit of a feel for who April Cavanagh is, how would you do that these days?
Oh, goodness. It's true. I've actually been working on articulating what I do this year, and Joe's given me a little bit of guidance on that because it was really easy to say when I had a concrete job, I'm the head of agribusiness at Suncorp or doing blah, blah. But now that I'm doing a number of different things, and my family, not so much my direct family, but my broader family, they're like, but when are you going to get a permanent job? So I guess for me, work looks quite different to what it used to do, and that was pretty intentional when I came out of such a big corporate job that I really intentionally said I don't want the next 10 years to look like the last 10. So. In terms of replying to the question more directly, I would say that I am, it sounds wanky, doing a portfolio career, if you like. And that allows me, more importantly, to just say yes to really awesome things that come my way, to give me the flexibility to, go to 16 countries in the last 18 months, as I've done. And, more strongly apply, if I can speak freely, the dickhead rule than I was ever able to do in corporate life when I just had to work with everybody. So, my test for what I say yes to now is, are they good people? Is it going to be changing things? So in terms of the boards that I'm a part of, I guess I'm a part of a number of boards, and I also do some consulting work. But another sort of mentoring conversation has recently just helped me clarify that I don't need to run off necessarily and chase consulting work. I need to keep my eye on the flag on the hill, which is, for me, obtaining, the goal really is 3 really great paying boards. But until I achieve that, I need to obviously take on more boards. So I'm currently on 3 or 4 boards. The Board of Cotton Australia, which I've been on for 3 years. I'm the chairman of TSBE, first female chair, which I've been on since 2018. I've recently, last week, in fact, I was announced as the chair of Manufacturing Schools Queensland. So that's my first little foray into Govy. And I'm about to close, I think, joining another board, which is a commercial private company, and they're about to get some investors. And I think through that, I'll also learn some really interesting skills. So that's what I do in a professional sense. In a personal sense, yep, born and bred in Western New South Wales, Brewarrina, between Burke and Walgett. Now live in Toowoomba, which again, I never said, I swore I'd never come back here. But here I am with my 3 boys. One of them just went to the Fair Home Formal last night. And my husband, who hails from Dalby. So yeah, that's a bit about April Cavanagh personally and professionally right now.
April, there's heaps that we can dig into. We've got a good Toowoomba contingent on this call today. You're well represented in that part of the world. You
Mm,
mentioned, you get to say yes and focusing around the
mm,
impact piece. What does that
mm,
look like for you? Like you're very, the bits that I know of are
mm.
very much still in that ag space. But
Yes.
what's the impact that you're looking for?
Yeah, I guess that's a little bit about my background, and I do have that, Jules, to talk through today, mate, by way of the keynote. And I know a number of people might be working on their own, so I might give that a quick go if I could, Jules, at some point. It'll take 10 minutes or so. But out of that, I suppose, my philosophy is, uh, it's threefold. My leadership philosophy, it's making a difference. So it is about being part of something that can be bigger, um, better when I finish with it than what I found it. So that's sort of a test that I put myself through. It's definitely, and again, apologies, getting shit done. So I don't want to be around a table where we just talk about things over and over. And the third thing, most definitely, is having fun. So that's probably my litmus test for things that I want to be involved in. That it's impact, but it's action, and it's having fun on the way too.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. So you mentioned you've got something
Yes,
prepared. Do you want
I
to? Do
do.
you want to? Yeah. Well, why don't we start there and then we
Yes,
can all
would you
go.
mind? And
Not
maybe
at all.
everybody could give me a little bit of feedback on it, because I have been working on it for a little while. And in fact, Jules and I sort of came up with it maybe, God, 2018, even, Jules, was when we first started thinking. But I guess that was the time when I knew as a leader I wanted to be that person that could go into the forums and have something to say, and be invited to be a keynote or whatever at different conferences. So I recognized in myself that I needed that tool in my arsenal. So that's where I've sort of refined it on the way. So let me give it a go to you guys. I'm sure you're thinking about your own. And even when I hear other people, actually, I'm always scratching down little things that, people say that, oh, I should incorporate that into mine. So this is
April,
one anyway.
before you start,
Yeah.
before you kick off, I know I can see you're
Yeah, yeah,
rearing up. I just
yeah, yeah.
I feel like is an actually a super interesting little segue
Yes,
into a element of the connection table that we're building out,
yes,
which is our
yeah,
members
yeah.
do their keynote
Mm,
and have
yeah,
the network give feedback and
mm,
things like that.
yeah, yeah,
Love you to do this, but I would love for you to maybe we can do this another one, or you even just talking to screen and recording your thing, and we can
yeah.
put you in as our launch one in there, and then it means
Mm,
it's not on the call in here can give you
yeah,
more
yeah,
feedback on that. And anyone
yeah,
else
yeah.
who's in the call that's interested in doing that,
Yes,
ping us because we're definitely
yeah.
start
It's
building.
a skill, yeah. And I know we've got Chat GPT now to make it better or easier, but still, it's
You've
yeah.
still got to be
So
able to deliver it, don't you?
definitely, definitely. So I'd welcome your feedback on mine today. So I guess and it can change, I suppose, in terms of the frame that you give it, depending on what your audience is and what you're speaking to. And in fact, I prepared this one I was asked to go back to my school last year and speak to the year 12s, which, yeah, that's like a whole other, you just got all that emotion of, Christ, the last time I was here was 30 years ago, and I never thought I'd be that person who got to come back and talk to the year 12. So anyway, so if is that okay, Joe, if I take off now? Okay, cool. So you know, and I might just talk a little bit about what I like, but in the frame of this one, I suppose, and today to you, my leadership message would be that you can't control what happens to you, but you can always control what happens next. So it's an absolute privilege to be here with you today, my good friends, Joe and Julia, and the connection table that I've wanted to support in a tangible way and intangible way, but certainly in the tangible way today. So I also say hello to my fellow leaders, my distinguished colleagues, my existing friends, and the new friends that I know I'm going to have after today. I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts that I hope resonate with you, no matter where you are on your journey in leadership, whether you're starting out, whether you're thinking about your next step, how do you crack into that next level, moving on to the next role, or even, like me, as you transition out of a permanent job, whatever that might look like next. But as I reflect on my own journey, there are twists and turns, highs and lows, and unexpected chapters that you can't predict or skip, unfortunately. So my story is one about leadership, but it certainly didn't start out that way. There'll be many twists and turns on the way, including highs and lows, including as a family, a fatal car accident, many years of drought and concern for my family's mental health. I have to be careful that I don't check it when I say this. Eating disorders, adoption, goodness, we've had it all. The sale of our family property, losing many loved ones to cancer, and a low that I always think of is a one-legged man. On the other side, I've had highs of running a $5 billion national business for Queensland's largest publicly listed company with over 100 staff, living and working as an expat in London, the highs of getting engaged in Canada many years ago, living our best lives in inner city Sydney, returning to Brisbane to start a family. And who would have thought a low and a high is that one-legged man? I guess, I invite you to think about who, if I think of myself, who amongst you actually thinks that you're interesting enough to even give a keynote? And I certainly, for a long time, and probably still do think, God, why do people want to hear about my story? And if you are feeling that way, then perhaps my story is as relevant to you as to anyone. My story today, it has 3 parts. One to tell you about where I got to where I am, and not to, I guess not to demonstrate, or brag about where I am today, but to illustrate, I think, that the road to leadership isn't always paved. It can be bumpy, uncertain, it can be really painful, but it's also incredibly rewarding. And it's in those challenges that we find the lessons that shape us into the leaders that we're meant to be. So the first part, the twists and turns of growing up. I certainly didn't see corporate life as being in my destiny. As I said, born and bred in Western New South Wales, full of challenges that at times, just thought we were never going to get through. Remote town, one of 4 girls, and life was really far from easy. I know I always wanted a boy. We were up early in our family. We were up, 4 o'clock, mustering the fences, mustering the sheep and fixing the fences. And in addition to that upbringing, which was very nature-based, sadly, at the age of 6, I also lost my mum in a fatal car accident. And I can still really feel how that moment changed everything for me. And it forced me to grow up quickly and to grapple with a grief that I, didn't understand at the time. And it probably wasn't till I had kids that I realised that it was not only a nature-based upbringing, but it lacked a lot of nurturing, post that time. In addition to that, as many rural kids have, got sent off to boarding school in Sydney at age 11. And, that was in central Sydney. And I definitely, possibly because of things that had happened earlier to me, I really grappled with being in that environment, and I was difficult. And, that sort of continued through that school where all my family had gone through very successfully and, just struggled to find my place at that school and actually the next. So, and in addition, and you can't see me today, but, I'm very tall, I'm a man mountain. And I guess as a teenager, I just would do everything to fit in, to be shorter, to not stand out, and of course to have a normal family. Also, I need to just pause there for a minute and take a sip. So, so it's taken me many years to sort of forgive that. It's taken many years to forgive that version of myself and realise that those mistakes, they were just part of the process of finding out who I was. I vividly remember my uncle actually saying to me at the end of year 10, after I just had a rough year in another school, heading to Toowoomba, that this is a new start. You can build an entirely new life. No one needs to know, if you like, about, you know, what all that shit that had passed prior. So, you know, just go for it. And funny enough, he's the uncle who owns the roommates at that time. So I suppose when I came to Toowoomba, that was the first time I found that power, or I should say was open to it, power of community and support, and really did find my tribe. And, you know, those Jules certainly being amongst those many years later. About the power of having a tribe, those who champion you and who you can champion in return. I guess for me, it was a journey of accepting help and to enjoy people in authority and not always rebelling. So I guess I didn't know it until then, but that marked a real turning point in my life and helped me shape into the leader that I was going to one day become. So, you know, that message of you can't control what happens, but you can control what happens next. That was sort of the moment that occurred to me, if you like. So having said that, though, finishing school, I definitely wanted to get out of Toowoomba, cold, miserable place, and I never wanted to return. So that brings me into part two of my story, which was, you know, finding opportunity and growing as a leader. And yeah, I wanted to go. I wanted to never come back. I guess the writing instructions from my dad in Western New South Wales was, you know, get as far away as you can from here and never come back. So I guess I went on to university at UQ. And then, you know, moved to London as soon as I could on a working visa before, you know, we decided to land in Sydney. So, yeah, so each of those bringing, I suppose, the challenges, the opportunity, the thrill, and building confidence of, oh wow, I can move anywhere, I can do everything, and I will get through it. You know, I will cope, I will adapt, I will make the most of it. So I guess that really built that confidence and belief that was something, you know, that I could do. So I could take risks, I could land on my feet time and time again. But while, of course, you know, opportunities, you know, ups and downs, all that sort of stuff in terms of on the way, but ultimately opening up doors that I never knew existed. So returning to Brisbane, starting a family, and then back into Toowoomba, and guess just briefly on that, you know, I've been having kids, and I'll just talk to that because I know that's important for the mums on the line. Having kids in Brizzy, you know, we had 3 kids in 3.5 years. And my husband and I just looked at each other and said, like, we can't both work full time. I was personally going insane looking after the kids. So he put up his hand to, you know, to be the full-time carer, which was great. So, and that really allowed me to say yes to opportunities that came my way. And certainly when I think about, you know, my own success, that it's our success, that it's a family success, because we've all sort of given and taken along the way. So, so in that regard, I guess I was at Suncorp, and there was a pretty pivotal moment in terms of me saying things like, and again, because I could, I want to be a leader who can solve problems in any context. So that was really a key moment for me to be able to say, I want to be a leader. I want to be a senior leader. I want to, you know, and just owning my power, I suppose, to even say that out loud without seeming like a wanker, if you like. So, so through that, and I hate to say it as well, but it was a bit about how I dress. You know, I was a mum with 3 small kids, but I had to make the conscious decision to not turn up looking really tired and shaggy. You know, I had to go, right, I'm gonna blow dry my hair, I'm gonna dress corporate, I'm gonna, you know, turn up, and I'm gonna be my best self, you know, in the workplace every day, even though I was really tired and I, you know, I didn't really want to. So I guess, you know, that was certainly something that helped me get on the radar from a, you know, corporate talent succession sort of profile thing. And we can talk about that a bit more. But the CEO at that time, and in fact, it was David Littleproud, actually, who resigned in Southwest Queensland as the regional manager. And the CEO, you know, we went through a process, but ultimately the CEO looked at me and said, right, we need a good woman in Southwest Queensland running our agribusiness team. I didn't have an agribusiness background. That he said, you've worked in a farm, you can handle yourself, off you go. So I guess that was, again, well, I've worked in Toowoomba, I want to be in leader in any, you know, any any context, I better, off I go. So, and that worked well in terms of having family here locally and things like that. So, I guess, that is a whole moment for me to go, wow, I'd arrived actually at the place that my journey had almost begun by coming full circle and returning to Toowoomba and working in a sector also that was my upbringing. So through the course of that role, absolute highs, working with 3,000 farming families, leading a $5 billion business, working with a team of 100 people across Australia. But I suppose out of that, you're like, wow, you made it. But I guess out of that, you realize that the successes, growing the business by 10%, all that sort of stuff, that was nice. But I guess that was a moment to go, oh, shit, man, it's got to be something more for me. That the highs were great, the bonuses were nice, but they didn't define me. And what truly, what I got out of bed every day for were the people that I worked with, the teams that I led, and the way that I could help other people succeed. And a particular pride was that when I started in the business, there was like 1 in 10 female bankers, and when I left, there were 4 in 10. So that still very much brings me joy, and brings me joy to see my successor here in Queensland, Alicia, to take on the business and to continue to grow that number. So I guess out of that, I guess I understood, discovered that leadership wasn't about titles or accolades. It's about serving others, empowering, those around you, creating an environment where people can thrive. So that was, I guess, what I took out of that chapter. My third part, and my apologies, I am coming to an end shortly. So the one-legged man, let's come back to that. And out of that, I guess I've learned about the importance of service and, how leadership and humanity can really cross over. So as I've said to you, the joy for me has been, championing others. And I want to sort of tell you a story of how, that has really been brought home for me. And that started in maybe in the late 2010s, 2017, 2018. I should know better. I was driving home with my boss at the time. We'd been out west. It was December. We'd been out west attending a number of functions, pre-Christmas functions, if you like. We had travelled over 1,500 kilometres, and we were 15 k's from home. And what do you know? And we were just coming around a corner. And I very vividly remember there was a car in front of us. There was a motorbike approaching from the other direction, and he kind of got the wobbles up, crashed, and lost control of the motorbike and crashed into the car in front of us. And, everything, I guess, happens a bit in slow motion in that moment. But, like on impact, the bike went one way, sort of saw him shoot up in the sky, and part of his body go in a different direction. So very vivid recollection, and has caused a lot of trauma over the years since, at the time and in the years since. So I guess I suspected, and far out, he just texted me. I actually have to reply that they've got the 000 call on I've given away the punchline already, the 000 call, and he's asked if we can use that in the Royal Flying Doctors fundraiser that's coming up, which would be a whole other level of revisiting that. But I guess in that moment, I was just like, no, like I was just like, I saw that, but I couldn't have seen that, and that just can't be right, like just that real cognitive dissonance, I suppose. And we just jumped out of the car and raced towards him, and my boss, John, and I, and couldn't see a lot. He had a helmet on, but obviously there's like really horrific, a lot of like flesh and blood and all that sort of stuff, which I won't go into too much because, I'm aware everybody's got their own stories and journeys. But in that moment, we just, tried to do the best we could and hold his hand and tell him that we loved him and thought that was going to be his final moments. Obviously, we couldn't see how old he was, what his story was, and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, despite there being a number of cars and motorbike riders, you know, around us, actually no one else came over. But again, which I was angry about for a little while, but I understand again that everybody's got their own journey. But yeah, it was about 12 minutes until the ambulance arrived, and that is certainly a really long period of time when you're going through that. So yeah, so anyway, work through that. And again, another moment that you can't control what happens, but you can control what happens next. And, you know, the great news is that despite being one of Australia's most significant motorbike accidents, that actually he did survive out of that, and goodness only knows how. Obviously, with a great team of medical specialists and things like that. So the one-legged man, absolute low point, but the high point is in the days following and years following that I've got to know Zach, that he's just an absolutely cracking, I say kid because he was only, you know, 20 or so at the time. And he now gives his time to the party program that actually talks to kids about risk-taking behaviour and things like that. So he's actually talked to my own kids in that program about, you know, what it means to or you know, try to encourage kids to think through things a little bit more. So again, together we have raised over $1 million for rural services, including a rehab program, rehab unit here in Toowoomba. Previously, you know, for kids coming through that, they were actually sitting in the mental health hospital with all the oldies and stuff like that. It just wasn't a good place to be trying to recover. So that's you know, how how service, I suppose, and service actually helped me get through that moment, and you know, and give me something tangible to do with all those horrible thoughts and feelings, is to say, right, how do we turn this into something that's good, if you like? So I suppose as you know, that, yeah, so in service, you know, that helped me get through that moment, and most definitely him too. So team, that is the three parts of my story. And I guess in reflection, it's certainly not about the twists and turns that have been on my journey. It's not about the leadership or the recognition that I've received. It's about those that have, you know, that I've contributed to or served, how I've supported my peers, and how ultimately I've made the world a better place. It makes me feel good, and have certainly made my journey all the more rewarding. So thank you for sharing the three parts of my story, and I look forward to the feedback on my keynote. And again, it is that you can't control what happens, but you can control what happens next. Find your tribe, celebrate them, give in service, and as you step into the next chapter of your leadership journey, I want to leave you with these words. You can't skip the chapters. That's not how life works. You have to read every line, meet every character. You won't enjoy all of it. Hell, some chapters will have you crying for weeks. You'll read things you don't want to read. You'll have moments when you don't want the pages to end. But you have to keep going. Stories keep the world revolving. Live yours. Don't miss out. So live your story, embrace every twist, turn and detour on the way. Don't rush through the tough parts, learn from them, celebrate the moments of joy, and be there for others when they need you the most. And above all, remember that true leadership is not a title or the position you hold. It's about how you live your story and the impact you can have on others. Thank you.
You. Wowzers, April.
Oh,
Okay, well, first, thank you for sharing, because that was like a lot, well and truly. And some of those bits and pieces that I'd heard over the years, but I think that you've just totally demonstrated that, you know, you've got no idea what is going on or has happened previously with other people. But I think that I agree with you completely. Those twists and turns and the ups and downs and things have definitely built you into the leader that you are and that are respected for. I also wanted to add that anyone watching this back who is like booked in to do a like brunch with friends with us, you do not need to prepare a keynote to bring to this call. You have gone above and beyond with your performance for a Friday afternoon. So thank you. But look, I think what I think I would love to do if you're up for it, April, is maybe
Yes.
your email in the chat. And if people
Oh,
want
yes.
you some feedback directly, I think that that would probably be a really helpful thing. Or if you're wanting to catch up in chats and things like that, I definitely want to look at what this looks like with doing something with the network as well. But like, I've got so many questions that I wrote down around like lots of things there. I think the feedback on your actual like keynote and the
let's do that.
all of those things,
Yeah.
I would love for people to give that, and you can put it in the chat as well if you want. You'll be able to see these things. But I think what I really would be interested if you were to be asked after delivering that keynote, because, you know, quite often they're opened up to the floor. If someone asked, which do you think has been one of the most pivotal things in that story that of the twists and turns and things, what have been one of the most pivotal things for where you are now? So for where you are now, having left the corporate like hamster wheel, and for you going into your portfolio career, my only feedback on you describing your self is when you said, like, I know it sounds wanky, but so you have to cut the wanky part out of the thing, but your very impressive portfolio career that you're working on.
You have.
What do you think that there's a piece in there that has been really pivotal in helping you probably transition between the two?
Yeah.
To make it a bit more specific.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I guess, I mean, yeah. I want to say lots of different things, but the one I'll probably say is financial independence, Joe, because that actually, or acting as a team. So, you know, taking a job like that, coming out, you are in a much better spot than what you started. So that does allow you to not have to take the first thing that comes and things like that. So, I guess when I decided to, step out or came out of Suncorp or whatever happened, that, my husband was back working then. And that allowed us to work as a team to, to go through that stuff. And to that end, even living in regional Australia has been enormously helpful because you don't have the size of a mortgage or that you might have in Brisbane or Sydney or something like that. So, that allows you to, to make decisions that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise.
Oh, and I really appreciate that response as well, because I think that that's something that we don't talk about enough. And I think that that's something that people are like, wow, look at these people doing all these amazing things and getting to do those like out there projects or to have piecework and things. But we don't sort of talk about the fact that of what the hard yards and bringing the debt down or the privileged place that you're coming from already when you go into making those decisions. So
that's right. And in fact, that really consumed me when I first came out of Suncorp, that I was terrified about. And my kids are at private schools, right? That's going to cost $300,000. And where was I going to get that $300,000 from? And I guess I was lucky enough to only have to worry about private school fees. But I have to say in that regard that actually the money I've been able to earn since then far outweighs that as a problem. So that, I guess, reinforce that I'm on the right trajectory in terms of I don't have to worry about that so much before. But previously I and there were just different ways. Like I was on the board, that helped contribute towards school fees, just little things like that also help. So yeah.
No, I really appreciate that. I've just put a chat in there if anyone would like, that's actually on the call today, that wanted to ask April. I've got lots of other questions. I can keep going, but if there's someone else that's in here that would like to ask a question, go for it.
I love the big things on here. Beck, shit. Do you want me to go and get your wardrobe? I think we should put Beck Things shop on this line.
Yeah.
Meld.
Sorry,
Joe,
I wanted
I'm
to
putting
ask a very standard sort of question of reflecting now, April, from all your experience. What would you tell your was it 6-year-old self who lost your mother? What advice would you give her now from what you've achieved?
Yeah, I mean, so it would be like, you're not going to be better in spite of this. You're going to be better because of this.
Hard for a 6-year-old to take that in, though, isn't it?
It's true, but you don't have to prove everyone wrong. You know, not everyone is against you. You know, like, yeah, I think that's definitely when you're at that age, you're just like, yeah, you come out, you're a fighter, you know, and you have to be a lot of years before you learn you don't have to fight. Yeah.
Beck, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, not at all, Jules, except to apologise for being late. The Queensland time, I was working on New South Wales time on another webinar, and I was trying. Anyway,
I did the same thing.
Thank you. That was really insightful.
I had to text Joe this morning and say, which time are we working on here?
Only a week to go, haven't we?
Oh my God! Thank God! Thank God.
I've got another question, April, around as far as you can obviously see, there's been an enormous influence of your personal life impacting like your leadership journey and trajectory and things like that. But if you flip it back the other way and have a look at the time that you've spent, say, in corporates or in other organizations and things, what have you seen that is a genuinely good investment in leadership development? Because I think a lot of the time, a lot of people, you know, they've got, say, a certain budget to spend on things, or you know, they've got to tick a box with the amount of PD that they're doing as far as their jobs. Like, that's all well and good, but have you seen things that you can talk about, even if it's a one-day program or a you've seen actually have been productive and helpful and actually making an impact?
Yeah, and that certainly is the benefit of working for a corporate, is you kind of don't have to scrap as hard as what you would do in a small business to free up the space for that. I mean, probably, you know, as a female leader, you know, Brené Brown's stuff was always really informative in terms of like releasing perfection and, you know, just embracing imperfections, if you like. So, and that was right back to her book of The Gifts of Imperfection. And I've got a number of her other ones just here behind me. But at that time, anyway, she just had a little $150 online course, you know, sort of before she became really big. And I know that is available through different iterations. And Jules, maybe I've seen you run one of those as well. So at that time as a leader, I actually said to the whole team, like, it's only $150. I think there was 40 people reporting to me. Let's all do it. And far out, that was just so, I think I was on my own journey. They were all on their own journey. And in fact, I still have people writing to me, you know, like 15 years later saying, wow, just that one course that we did, I was online. And, you know, she did little activities like even painting, you know, and it was, you might think you're a shit painter, but that actually isn't the point. The point of it is just letting yourself be creative and, you know, and take risks and, you know, fail at painting and all that sort of stuff. So it was a really, really effective way to actually change the whole culture of that team and embrace invulnerability as a whole business. So that was certainly something right back when, Joe. A couple of other things in terms of, you know, getting shit done, and I use it even in my consulting now. You know, agile project management, I just couldn't speak highly enough of. And again, it's not about the project tools, but it's about the culture that fosters, and working in a transparent, sort of low tech way, you know. So it's about having meeting every day for 15 minutes, you know, and then updating your stakeholder at the end of the week, but that is just like, you know, here's stakeholder, look at what we've done this week, and you know, just embracing you know, open, transparent communication. So that is probably another one that I would say. Just two other things quickly. I guess Suncorp did have a career women thing, but you know, that's why, you know, the connection table, and that gave me the confidence to articulate my vision as a leader, and I think that's a really important step. You know, that Joe and Julia can help facilitate is saying things out loud like, oh, I want to be the boss, which maybe otherwise you wouldn't. And I don't think that's necessarily relevant just to ladies either. Another one I think the connection table would do, and maybe as part of your keynote thing, Joe, is a public speaking course that I've done is or you know, even how you write your emails, how you get your message across in a really interesting way, but not, but get the outcome that you need as well, I think is a really cornerstone to my leadership bag these days. So there's some ideas anyway, Joe.
I'm madly writing.
Yeah.
I've also asked others in the chat to put in any books or podcasts that they use, so that, you know, there's a chance for people to
great,
to grow that. April, I have a question, and it's one of those sort of logistical ones that might be of interest to some of the people. Is around, like, how did you actually find some of the boards that you're part of? Did they find you? Did you, you know, not all of us will have a national Suncorp role to come, you know, that was really, that built your brand a lot. But where did you go, and where might you send people if they're looking to start this bit of a, if boards in whatever at whatever level is something they're looking at?
Well, again, I think it's just having courage to say that out loud, and in conversations that you have in your network, that's what you want to do. I guess how I got started was, through my existing network at Suncorp, the chair of Cotton Australia, Nigel Burnett. We'd had a lot to do with each other and built a lot of respect for each other through that. So he was actually one that rang me and convinced me to do that in the days after I left Suncorp, even though I was like, I'm taking a break, I'm burnt out, you know. He's like, come on. So he's very persuasive. But that did really set me off on the trajectory of, right, I'm going to do this. But even before that, I suppose, and as part of the Suncorp professional development, I'd done the AICD course. I think that's an absolute must if that's in your future. And there are some different ways that you can get, funding towards that, because it's not an insignificant investment. And by putting yourself in the room, and I say that intentionally because you do have to put yourself in the room, don't do it remotely, go and meet the people in that room. So again, you are being exposed to other people who are experienced board members or who, are on that journey as well. So when I first started, but I think the other thing, Jules, is be prepared to layer up. So when I started, I was in 2018, start on the voluntary boards and then build up, go higher, then go higher again, and all that sort of stuff is what I've had to do. And also in building my confidence and skills to have an opinion, make a contribution, all that sort of stuff. When you are around the table, and I do recall my first board, Macca, Ian McFarlane was on it, and I just could barely speak for the first 6 months because I was so terrified that, this really experienced politicians around the table as me. So, and now if I told him that, he'd think that was hilarious. But that's I think just all part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a really good question in the chat that I just want to ask you. That Catherine Maz, you put it in there. Do you want to? Are you right to unmute and ask April that question?
Yeah, sure.
Hello. Oh, we got it. Yeah, same Maz.
You little ripper. So one of the things that I'm constantly curious about is, how do you build resilience in people, or can you build resilience in people? Like, you're obviously strong and all the English language words that menopause means that I've forgotten at the moment. You're that.
Yes.
But do you think you can do that and build that muscle in people without them having to go through the trauma that you've also gone through?
Yeah.
If so, how might you do that?
Yes. Yeah, good question. And I mean, it's something that I even think about with my own kids, you know, but I know this isn't the right forum to talk about in that way. But for example, what do I do with my teenage son to build resilience? You know, I do send him out the paddock and make him go and do fencing jobs and things like that, so that he does he's able to overcome things later in life. So he doesn't realize now that I'm doing that for him later in life. But I mean, really good question, Maz, and I feel like it's something I'm going to have to think about some more. But is it, you know, that sense of having each other's back? You know, and that's, I guess, what I say to all of my team. And I, in fact, just met the CEO of Manufacturing Screens Queensland. Did I say that explicitly? I don't know. But I know that when I started Suncorp, I just said to my boss, I just need to know that you've got my back. And everything from there will be fine. But if I have to look over my shoulder and worry about what you're thinking about, I probably won't be resilient. So I guess that's what I try to say to my team is I've got your back. And then that frees them up for, you know, because if you think about cognitively, threat or whatever, like I hope then that frees up their brain to be creative and solve problems as opposed to I'm under threat. So yeah, that's something that is just coming off the top of my head anyway, Maz, and I'll think of a better answer for next time I get asked that question.
Great answer.
Thanks, Del.
If I could
Just
throw
keep
a
the
question
time
at
with
you,
you.
April, if that's okay. Thank you
Yes.
very much for sharing as well, and lovely to hear from you.
Mhm.
Talking about getting shit done, you sort of explained that, which was awesome. Thank you
Yes.
so much. You also touched on having fun, which I think resonates with any human being if they're a human being.
Yeah.
In a corporate context, though, can you, or maybe personally, if you can share
Yes.
where that comes from in you and the importance of having
Yeah.
how you achieve that in a corporate setting,
Yes.
professional setting.
Yeah, it was great to see you, Dan. I have been wondering where you're up to, and should we out everybody that you're in the musical last week here in Toowoomba?
It's out there. Yes, I was.
Well done, Dan.
Dan can sing, he can dance, he can, mix it with the best of them. That was so great, Dan. Go you.
Good to hear.
And is that part of the whole having fun too? Yeah, I guess. So what I do definitely as a leader in the businesses that I've run is, you know, every quarter I definitely get them together to say, right, how do we go? You know, how we go against our goals? How do we, you know, what worked and what didn't? And I guess that's the agile project methodology, is just having that open chat, celebrate what we've done, you know, give ourselves a kick up the arse if that's what if it's what we haven't done. And you know, I guess for me, my go-to has always been, you know, I'll have the strategy chat, but I'll lose interest in it, you know, pretty quickly after that, and say, okay, let's have a drink and let's go out for dinner and just all that sort of stuff. So I guess that's what I fostered with my team, is to, you know, have that work chat and then sort of go for a meal, have a drink with my team, so that we can just enjoy other people's company. But I guess, Dan, it always starts with recruitment and making sure you're recruiting your kind of people.
Brilliant. Thank you.
And Dan's available for signatures at the end of this call. Autographs.
Joe, sorry, Beck, did you have a question? You go.
No, you're right. I was just giggling. Never mind.
Well, I'm conscious that we're at time, and I'm conscious, Bridget, sorry, there are a few of us got thrown by the Queensland, New South Wales. We've realised we're daylight saving. We've got Western Australia as well. We're almost going to end up back on the same time zones at some stage. But I am conscious that we've had our hour together, and I want to let everybody go. April, thank you. You mentioned at the beginning, I mentioned at the beginning, and so have you. You and I have known each other probably longer than I've known some of the others on this call, and there were times where I had questions but couldn't say anything because I was choking up at this end and you were choking up at that end. But can I thank you? So firstly, from a keynote perspective, I think, you know, people want to connect with the story, and there's so much of your story that you very generously shared that a whole range of us can connect with for a whole lot of different reasons that you don't even know about. And so I think, you know, well done for that, and hopefully you'll get some feedback from people. Some of the people on this call you know really well, others not so much. So I think that's going to be a really generous gift that we can give April, is some feedback.
Yes, I'd welcome it.
Thank her for the way in which she showed up today. April is most definitely one of the most generous people I know in feedback, in networks, in ideas. And so again, April, I'm sure if people from this call find you on LinkedIn, that won't be a problem. I'm gonna assume that that's a connection you'll be happy to make. And so part of the purpose of this is that we can grow our networks. There is a little cluster of Toowoomba crew on here. So, you know, but equally we've got Edwina from the south, we've got Sue from the west, we've got, you know, people all over. And I wanted just to finish with one of my favourite April stories, if I can, before we all head off. She talked about service. No. We're all grateful that social media was not around when we were in our early 20s. But she talked about service. She talked about having fun. And I've met Zach, and I've seen how he has the relationship that he and April have, and it is one of pure delight to see those two together. But some people on this call will know I had breast cancer at the same time as April was going through the trauma that was being part of that accident and being a first witness to that. And so not only has she fundraised $1 million for the work that she's been doing with Zach, but between her Suncorp role, supporting her female-led teams and the women in the teams, connecting through the Toowoomba Hospital Foundation, which is where Dan also was for a period of time, we were also able to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars across southwest Queensland to be able to support other women who were going through some of the similar stories that I was at the time. So April, you are most definitely somebody who does not yet know where the impact of your work, both personally and professionally, will end up. And there's just such beauty that's coming from you as you've been released into the world so that you can be part of all of these other things. And we're really excited for what comes next for you. Thanks so much for being part of today.